Yep, I gave her the name.
Good evening. I will call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission. Its regular meeting on Wednesday, June 14th. It's 7:01. Could I please have a roll?
Commissioner Carmichael. Commissioner Sharp. Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Bartel.
Here.
And Commissioner Lavoy.
Here.
Did I say it properly?
You did.
Okay, and Chairman Pill.
Here, thank you. We have a quorum. Would everybody please stand and follow me along with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you sit down, while I have you standing, anyone who is going to give testimony tonight on any of the many items we have on the agenda, either for or against, needs to be sworn in. So I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and acknowledge my simple statement with an I do. Do you swear that your testimony tonight will be truthful, so help you God? And you're not? Okay, thank you very much. And I would ask that everybody please silence pagers, cell phones, and any type of electronic devices. Also, since we have a rather intimate setting tonight, although there's probably tens of thousands of people tuning in on television, when you do approach the podium, there's a sign-in sheet, and we'd ask that before you address anything that you just sign in, please. All right, the approval for the minutes of the May 10th, 2017 meeting is next, and those minutes have not been prepared yet, so we will defray that to our next meeting. Next up, after a several-month vacancy, I am pleased to announce that we have filled our 7th seat on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I would like to welcome Chris Lavoy to our group. Welcome aboard, Chris. Maybe you could just give us a quick couple little seconds spiel.
A couple seconds spiel.
Couple minute, your choice.
Chairman Pill, thank you very much for your remarks. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been a resident of Westmont. I think it started back in 1991. Raised 8 children here, all went to local schools here, and just very much looking forward to serving the community in this capacity.
Great. Looking forward to having you.
What's your professional expertise again?
I am a professional engineer. I'm a civil engineer. I also have a degree in architecture.
That might be
It's
useful.
good background for us.
Excellent background for us, yes. So before we begin with our first item, our second item tonight, which is Planning and Zoning 17-012, I know that you two folks are here for the first item and there's no one else in the room. For those people watching on television, that item is going to be continued to next month. So the applicant did not have everything ready. So if you've tuned in to watch that one, we're still going to have an exciting meeting, but that one's going to be on the agenda for next month. All right. Did I remember everything, Joe?
Yes, you did, sir.
Thank you. All righty, we'll begin with new business, Planning and Zoning, item 17-011. Scott Jackaway? Yep. Am I close? Good. Regarding the property located at 201 South Washington Street in Westmont for the following. A zoning code variance request to allow for construction of a home addition and deck within the required side yard adjoining a street setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Welcome, Scott, and the podium is yours.
I want to say, this microphone?
Yes.
Okay. I want to say thank you for taking the time to have this meeting and hear me out on this petition I have in front of the village. Just a little background about myself. Like you, I am on a commission in Downers Grove. I've served on commissions there for about 10 years and at the pleasure of the mayor there. And I've lived in Downers Grove my whole life, other than the 5 years, my first 5 years, where actually we're here in Westmont. If I remember, I have some vague memories of learning how to ride a bike in the 200 block of South Adams, and that house has since been torn down and built something new. but I have fond memories of Westmont, and I've always kind of stayed attached to Westmont, so to speak, because living just the next town over, to me, this is my stomping grounds where I grew up and learned how to, again, learn how to ride my bike, which was very challenging. I don't know, you have the actual packet in front of you?
Yes.
This here? Okay, I want to thank Joe, and his staff, they did a really good job of pictures and such.
If you could just recenter that, that's on all the television and screens. There you go.
Gotcha.
You could see it up there, and if there's anything you need to show, you could just swing it out and put it down, and they'll focus in for you and everything.
Very good. All right. Anyway, I am a mail carrier by trade. I work over in Burr Ridge, 38 years carrying mail over there. My wife's a realtor here in Downers Grove, and she's also a music teacher for preschool kids. I am kind of transitioning out of the mail service, and one of my hobbies is home remodeling, and I've done it quite a bit over the years. We have a 1906 Queen Anne home in Downers Grove that is, there's always something to work on, so tinkering around and rehabbing is kind of a hobby of mine. We've been in the market looking for properties. Westmont was always an area that we were very keen on possibly relocating for ourselves, and then maybe spending more time fixing our home in Downers and putting that on the market. But we came across this little property at 201 South Washington, which is on the corner of Dallas and Washington. And as you can see in the pictures, it's a small little, it's cute, it's a little brick bungalow, about 950 some square feet. It's 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Over the year, it was built in 1929, and over the years, as a report that staff has generated, there have really been no significant improvements that I could foresee while surveying the property before we made an offer on it. And when we did walk the property on the inside, it's very dilapidated, as is the outside. And I don't know if you've seen the before pictures when all the trees were there. It was very overgrown with weed trees and such, and I hired a tree service that actually worked for the village here, Vidido, who came and saved as many good trees as he can, but cleared out all the thorny ones and so on. But, so anyway, as we were looking at this property, we thought, well, what are we going to do with it? And we decided to buy it, and at one point we thought we would rent it out, or actually move into it because we're downsizing. All my children are older and moved out. But then as we bought the property and we started looking at it a little bit closer, and I have a good friend, architect here in the crowd, this is Debbie Wendling, we thought, well, we could really try to expand some of the square footage, because 900 square foot is not a lot of square footage if you're actually going to live there, in my world anyway. I need some room to, stretch out a little bit. And so we toyed with the idea of how to improve the structure. And it's a brick structure, so I'm not one to actually want to do any kind of tear downs. I'm more one to let's develop this property into something special and try to preserve what's existing the best we can. That's just my philosophy. And so with this property, we toyed with the idea of building a second story without really changing anything significant on the first story. One of the things that we found out through the building inspection on the first floor was the actual front porch, which is a little 8x10 corner of the house there, which I think you see in the pictures. The actual structure, the foundation, it has its own foundation, and it's failing. There's no poured footing that I can tell underneath that. So that front porch needs to be rebuilt. Okay, so if I'm investing money in building that front porch, what else do I need to do to maximize my investment in this property? And so we toyed with the idea of going up. I had my architect come out, we had a builder come out, just a rough look, does this home have good bones or not, And so everybody was thumbs up. We think could support a second story to the unit. We thought, okay, great. And which set me on this journey of, okay, let's go talk to the village first and see what my options are. And then that's when I came across the setback codes and so on and so forth, and met with Joe, who explained this whole process of applying for variance. So he set me up with the program for how to come before the commission and actually give you my pitch, per se. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what the purpose of this meeting is. So I wrote a report, basically, of what I've just talked to you about when I did the petition with the village. And again, I'll just reiterate, as of currently right now, we have no plans to change the existing rectangular structure other than enclosing that front porch area and then just going straight up one story. And but with doing that, we had to address the entrances in the front and then the entrances in the back, because obviously if we change the entrance in the front, what are we going to do? Are we going to just rebuild that porch, or are we going to build out again a little bit more to the west towards Washington Street? And so surveying the area, and then also Downers Grove where I live, I'm in love with front porches, big front porches. They're social structures. They're a great, segue from a home into a street or into the environment around the home. And so the idea is, as presented, we would like to put a front porch with, nice balusters and railings. It wouldn't be enclosed, it would be open. And the depth of it, I think I petitioned for 10, I don't remember if it was 10 or 12 feet, but certainly the idea is to just decide whether or not we can go end to end from from the south end to the north end. And it's the north end that encroaches on the setback rules or codes, which is 25 foot, and the actual northwest corner, according to your plot of survey there, is within 16 feet. So anyway, we have that challenge in the front, and in the rear of the structure, there is a back door which has no stairwell, and it's only I'd say it's roughly 12 inches high. But the plan here is, I don't know if you have a picture of the rear of the home. Do you have pictures of the rear of the home, Joe? Okay, so you'll see a window to the right and the door in the middle. And the idea here is to swap the door and the window area and relocate that gas meter a little bit. Okay. And the reason, you wouldn't know it so much from the outside, but from the inside, there's a stairwell that kind of cuts diagonally from the kitchen, which is just under that window, cuts diagonally into the basement, and there's a little 2x2 landing where that back door is, and there's just not enough headroom to get into the basement. So I need to get a little bit more a stair run in order to accommodate stairs that actually would, as far as I know, would satisfy code on the inside. So with that said, by putting the door there, I need some kind of a segue into the backyard, whether it be stairs or a deck. And it seems to me a deck is a nice, inviting structure to add to a home. And so with that said, as long as I'm here applying for a variance for the front porch, it makes sense to address the rear at the same time. And so with the rear, I think we applied for the same variance, and that is to go end to end from one corner to the other without encroaching on the street setback on Dallas any more than what's already there. So after presenting that plan to village staff, they asked me to address the findings of fact, which I guess I'm going to do with you guys right now. Like I said, this place was built in 1929, and it appears that there has been no significant improvements to it. The inside, I will say, is quite dilapidated also, and in need of repair, and plaster walls are coming down by themselves, and there are some issues that need to be addressed. What's interesting, a little side note, this home, which is really kind of quaint, is in the bottom, in the basement. There's a little room there where you could still find where the coal used to be shoveled. And when we were looking during the home inspection, we were still finding little chunks of coal still laying on the floor and, you know, stuck on ledges and so on and so forth. So I thought that was kind of neat. But anyway, in order to yield a reasonable return on the investment, if the variance isn't granted, myself as a homeowner, or actually any owner in this type of property, is really handicapped in trying to keep up with modernizations of our homes relative to, you know, the other homes and families in the area. If you were to do strict code enforcement of the 25 foot, I wouldn't be able to build anything additional to this structure until you get to actually where the current porch is actually located right now, which would require me then to build out to my neighbor to the south. And to do that, I would lose a lot more yard, and as you know, corner lots, they don't really have a whole lot of private yards out there. And so it becomes a little bit more of a sticking point when it comes time to sell. So that's kind of an impediment for myself. And being that the lot's only 60 foot wide, like I say, I lose roughly a third of it if there's strict code enforcement of the 25 foot. But at some point, when this home was built, as along with a lot of the other homes in that area, 16 foot was adequate. And I don't know when codes were changed, but that certainly leads to the next two items under the findings of fact. And, you know, I'm sure you're interested in whether or not anything that I've proposed here would change the character of the locality. And this area, actually in South Westmont, and I'm not familiar with where any of you guys live, but I walked the neighborhood on Saturday, and most all the homes that are corner lots are roughly 16 foot or closer to the sidewalks. And they have porches, they have decks, and again, I just walked the properties for maybe an hour and a half on Saturday morning, and actually had a laser measure thing, and from the sidewalk, how far is this home, how far is this porch, so on and so forth. And so this home here is in character with my neighbors. Again, I surveyed pretty much from, is it Hudson? I don't know what the furthest West Street is, to Lincoln, and from the 300 block of south, almost before 55th Street, to the first block removed from the tracks. And you know, I'm finding homes that are and/or decks and/or porches that are 14 feet, 12 feet, 14 feet, 11 foot 3, 12.7, 12.7. There's a couple of them that are even under 10. And I assume these are all grandfathered in too, but you know, most of these have decks, most of these have porches of some kind to get in and out of their homes. And so I don't foresee, or at least in my opinion, that if we were to allow a deck or a front porch here, that it would be out of character with my neighbors, per se. And so my idea, again, is to build something tasteful and in character. I like something newer, but then something that also looks older and in character with this brick bungalow that it is. And I think that pretty much covers it all, I think, and I just am available to answer questions if you have
Perfect.
any.
We will get to some questions in just a second. I'd like to hear from our staff first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant did an excellent job in this presentation. I don't have a lot more to add. So I'll just kind of summarize quickly. So there is a 25-foot setback because it is a side yard adjoining the street, which we treat the same as a front yard. The existing house is 16 feet. So within his current development rights, he can build up. There's no question that he can't build up at the 16 foot. It's when he wants to add to the front and to the rear that then we invoke the 25 feet. So it is approximately a 10-foot setback variance for both the front porch and the rear porch. As always, I'm available for any questions if you need me to elaborate anymore.
And Joe, the front yard and rear yard setbacks are being maintained, so that's
Yes.
not an issue, it's just the
I think
side
that
yard.
The house currently sits like 50 feet back from the front, so there's no issue with encroachment in the front. The deck in the rear, there's no issues with encroachment. So all other bulk regulations for the zoning district, based on his proposal, including lot coverage, would be met.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I will open up the public hearing. Please form a line and everyone sign in. Oh, I guess we're already done. So we will go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will begin with commissioners, and I will start with Commissioner Van Buren.
Yeah, I walked through it a couple times in the last few days, and obviously it needs some attention. And it looks to me like the basic structure, other than that, the northerly, southern part of the porch, it all seems pretty stable. And so that kind of takes care of going up. I have absolutely no problem with, well, obviously the front you can come, you're still at 38 feet even after I think your addition. That's not a problem in the back either. And every corner lot at that period of time, including the one immediately south of you across the street, which is even closer, everyone would have that same problem. So you have to deal within that parameter. So from what I see here, I am fully in favor of it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
You wanted to know if anybody lives around there. I'm on Hudson,
Okay.
210.
Well, hello.
You're, yeah, hi neighbor. Unfortunately, you got a corner lot, and that's what you got to jump through the hoops about that. I think that you made the correct decision to work on the front and the back instead of going up. You keep the look of the house and your artistic ramifications of that, and I have absolutely no problem. My kids all went to South School. We walked past that house, never even knew what it looked like because of the overgrowth. Right. And I think I also love porches, and I think the front and the back are going to be a great addition, and I support it 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bartel?
Well, I also support it 100%. It's, when you walk through the neighborhood and found it similar to other houses, I think that's important to kind of maintain the look of the neighborhood. And it will be a great improvement, certainly from the existing home. And I love the designs that you have here. I think these are going to be great.
Debbie?
I love the designs you did. That's very good. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lavoy?
Yes, I'm very supportive of your request. I see that there's a couple of things that I might add, just as a comment to you, what you might want to build into your budget. It looks like on the picture to the right of the screen, it really has nothing to do with the variation request, but to the right of the screen, you really can't see it in that picture on the screen. When you go out and look at it, the main power service comes into that corner of the house where you're going to have the deck, and the wires are, the main service is low hanging and your deck is going to be elevated. You may want to consider building into your budget to upgrade that electrical service. Other than that, I think it's a great project and appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask him something?
Certainly.
It wasn't in my presentation, but one of the first things that I wanted to do was actually bury all the utility lines. And so that is in the budget. We're going to bury the electric. And when Vitito came out and did the tree service, he actually cut the phone line.
Oh, boy.
And so that's, it's coiled up and it's on the pole right now. But we're going to bury all utilities going to the house, the cable, the phone, the electric, and once permits get going and so on and so forth.
It's certainly not a requirement of this application at all.
Sure.
It's just an observation that I had, and I wouldn't want to see somebody get hurt by arcing or anything else, especially in the weather that we have tonight, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's a requirement now, that for any new construction or reconstruction, that all utility lines be buried.
Good?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of comments. What are the plans? I notice a garage pad and an asphalt driveway. What are the eventual plans with that?
Well, when I met with Joe, he gave me a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of what all the codes were, you know, fencing, setbacks, and a little history of when that thing was tore down. And it happened before I bought the property. We will put another garage in that spot. Whether I keep the existing footprint or not, I'm not sure. Because the actual pad is cracked and part of it is falling, so I need to look at either piers or mud jacking. I haven't consulted any experts yet on that. I think I have two options of either going driveway to the alley or keeping the driveway going out to the corner of the lot. And I'm all ears listening to what options are best, and I'll work with village staff on that. It doesn't really matter to me at this point too much, but the garage will go in the exact, if, you know, give or take a foot here or there in that same area where it currently is.
The three larger trees on the southern property line in the eastern quadrant have red ribbons. I assume those are keepers?
Yes, Mr.
Since you've cleared everything else out and those remained, I assume that was the "don't cut the ones with the red ribbons" sign.
Phil Vitito came and tagged the ones that he thought were worth keeping, and he just didn't remove the ribbons after they had come and done the work.
No, that's fine. It just, those had nice canopies, and I was hoping you were going to
Right.
say the same. They look like they should stay. Once the house is done, any idea or plans for the side yard? It's a fairly, most homes are set up a little tighter on that side yard. You've got a nice 20-foot side yard to the south there, and obviously it's not, the landscaping leaves a little
Sure.
to be desired at this point, but any plans for that, or would that become like, sort of like a patio or sitting area, or
Well,
fruit-
it's
vegetable
interesting,
garden?
yeah,
or-
it's interesting that you asked that, because I didn't really devote a whole lot of time thinking about that side yard until today. I was devoted more time looking at the front and the back.
You knew I was going to bring it up, I guess.
No, well, actually, I read his report, and he brought it up in his last paragraph of his report. I didn't get that report till this afternoon. The idea in the back was to have a deck and keep as much garden that is actually there now. The woman who used to live there has a lot of perennials that are growing, which we noticed this spring. We were there every week taking pictures of, oh, wow, those are coming up there and these are coming up there. We're never going to remember this. You know, so we've taken a lot of pictures, and we would like to have a lot of ground cover, a really beautiful garden in the back, at least between the house and the garage. Now, working our way over to the south, where you're asking, because they just recently cleared the trees, I really had no vision for it before because it was just cluttered with trees and bushes. And so when we finalize plans for the second story, I would like to take advantage of incorporating that property or that outside space with the home somehow, whether that's through windows or a wraparound deck, would just extend it a little bit more to the south. And then paying attention to where the sunlight's now coming, because now with less trees, we can actually see, because before it was really dark, when we first bought the place. But we would like to tie that into the property as best we can and take advantage of it. And we thought about the idea of also, it used to have an old wire fence from end to end along that, but maybe just like a split rail, very open, 2-rail, something that's decorative, not, to separate neighbors from neighbors, but it's a decorative piece. Because I would like to bridge property to property while keeping the appearance friendly. And that's the whole purpose of the porch, I like the social aspect of porches. I have a big, beautiful porch in my home in Downers, and I love sitting on it in summer and just talking to neighbors who are walking dogs and stuff. And I tell you, when we were there cleaning the property, my wife and I have had such an overwhelming response with the neighbors that are out there who have welcomed us, and what are you doing? They're inquisitive. Well, I would be too. Are you tearing it down? No, we're not. And then their eyes would go wide, you're going to love this thing. Yeah, we're going to love this thing, we're going to bring it back to life, because it was beautiful at one time, and we're just going to, that's kind of the philosophy we have.
Excellent. Next question, I think you may have already answered this, and you sort of just delved a little bit, touched on it now, but so your plan is to actually finish this and occupy it at least for some period of time. You're not just building it and flipping it right away.
Well, I will be honest, that option is always there. But like I say, my kids are older and they've moved out of the house. We have a 2,300 square foot home in Downers, and I would actually like to put that one on the market and possibly move into here. My wife is a realtor. She's connected with the chamber here in Westmont. This is kind of where she would like to operate a little bit more. So to do that, we would actually like to blend in also and or live here. That's as honest the answer as I can give you, but I can't say no. In the end, once we got this thing built, we've changed our mind. But as of right now, that's where we're leaning. So just move on and live here.
With regard to the front porch and the rear deck, are you looking at concrete steps, wood steps? How are you going to structure that?
The deck in the back.
And the front porch? Because you're going to come out from the existing front porch, so that's no longer applicable. So how are we going to get up onto the front porch? How are we going to get up onto the deck?
You know what? We really hadn't talked about it yet with my architect, but I would lean towards probably wood because it's warmer. You can paint it, and you can be a little bit more decorative. It's more cost efficient, I think, from a short term. I'm leaning wood, but I didn't really put a lot of thought into it just yet, sir.
Okay. And finally, as far as the actual remodeling, so I know you mentioned winding down as with the Postal Service, and you mentioned also your love of fixing up. Are you planning on general contracting this and doing all the work yourself? Are you hiring someone? The reason I ask that question is, obviously, if you become a one-man home remodeler, this is going to take some period of time.
Sure.
So I'm curious what your plans are for the overall construction of the home.
I will hire somebody. I have one builder in mind and possibly seek another bidder just to get a fair estimate. I would like to have the second story on by the end of the year. And I agree with you. If I'm a one-man operation, it would take me probably a year. I am not skilled enough to put a second story on a home. I'm a fast learner. We have bought and or flipped townhomes. We currently have one in Bolingbrook right now that actually just my wife and I are working on. But I don't have to worry about the exterior. I don't have to change the actual structure. Like this is a lot more comprehensive. And so it's a little bit beyond my skill. So with talking to the one builder who came out to assess the property, so we could actually see how the bones were and so on, I did express my want to be involved in some way, and he kind of looked at me with a quizzical smile and he says, "I'll let you paint." And that was about it. So certainly I can do the landscaping on the outside. Certainly I can help with the paint. Certainly, maybe the flooring, whatever. I don't know how, maybe he's pulling the permits, and his name goes on it and he's the one responsible. So there's a legal issue probably there. And so I would have to probably defer to him. And I don't, as of right now, I'm leaning toward just painting and landscaping myself. He seemed to think that it would be a roughly 120 days, 4 months.
Okay.
And I don't know to what extent he gets done, but that's what
Well,
he
that's
said.
great. Yeah, the reason is it's one thing to have an overgrown home in a neighborhood and people walk by it, walk by it, walk by it. When you get into a construction project that goes on for, and a year would be rather quick for some people who have done these by themselves. When it gets into the second, third, and fourth year, that's where it becomes an annoyance to the neighborhood, and then there's a line forming at Joe's door and the rest of the code enforcement folks. So that's why I was curious about that. So that sounds good. That's an aggressive schedule. 4 months is pretty quick, because there's probably some major things. I mean, you mentioned already the utilities and things, but that's great. I'd also like to thank you for a great presentation and particularly for addressing the findings of fact. That's very, very important. This is a public hearing and there's a record of that, so appreciate that. Commissioners, any other comments or questions? John? No. Joe? Good. As we have a request for a variance here, we do have a reading, or we'll need a reading of the findings of fact, and I'd call on Joe for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is PZ 17-011, Scott Jackway regarding 201 South Washington Street in Westmont. Request for variance to allow a home addition and deck which encroaches into the required side yard adjoining a street setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District. Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. Findings of fact, the proposed front porch and rear deck additions will match the existing non-conforming setback of the existing house from Dallas Street and will not increase this existing setback. The proposed additions will meet the front yard and rear yard setbacks. The applicant could not repair and expand the front porch and could not replace the rear steps without this variance. Without these improvements and this variance, the property cannot yield a reasonable return. Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. Findings of fact, the applicant did not create the existing non-conforming setback of the house from Dallas Street. The applicant plans to improve the aesthetics and function of this house without increasing the setback from Dallas Street. Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Findings of fact, the proposed improvements will provide improved aesthetics and functionality of this house and will not increase the existing non-conforming setback from Dallas Street. Variation will improve the appearance and value of this property and will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
If you agree with these findings of fact, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in our agreement. Findings of fact are approved. With the findings of fact approved, I will entertain a motion for Planning and Zoning Item 17-011, Scott Jackaway regarding the property at 201 South Washington Street for a zoning code variance request to allow for the construction of a home addition and deck within the required side yard adjoining a street setback in the R3 Single Family Detached Residence District.
So move.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Bartel. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes?
Commissioner Bartel?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill.
Yes. All right. So you have our recommendation, and so it's a recommendation that's forwarded on to the village board. Joe will contact you in the very near future to let you know when you will be scheduled for a Thursday night hearing in front of the entire village board.
Thank
I
you.
wish you the best of luck, and thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Planning and Zoning Item 17-012, The Ryan Companies U.S. Incorporated regarding the properties located at 700 Oakmont Lane, Westmont, for the following. A zoning code variance request to allow parking within the front yard setback. B, a zoning code variance request to increase the number of allowable signs. C, preliminary plats of subdivision, vacation, easement as required to reconcile the easements. And D, site and landscaping plan approval. So, this is going to be, they did not finish all of the work that they needed for this presentation. So I'm going to entertain a motion. Yes?
Before we do that, let's formally open the public hearing.
Okay.
And then ask for a motion to continue the public hearing to the July PZC date.
So we'll continue the public hearing and then also continue the item, or just the public hearing sufficient?
Yeah, we can do it all in one motion. So it's a motion to continue the public hearing and continue the 4 agenda items until the July meeting.
Okay. So, on the advice of council, I will open up the public hearing for item Planning and Zoning 17-012, and I will entertain a motion for both of those items.
I will move according to the verbiage of our council.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue the public hearing and a motion to continue items A through D on our agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Commissioner Van Buren and a second by Commissioner Thomas. Any questions on the motion?
Just a note to the public, there will not be new newspaper publication because this is continued.
So it will be on our next month's agenda, barring any unforeseen changes to that. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Bartel.
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill.
Yes. Okay. Staff, any comments or things you need to bring up or anything?
I just want to mention that just this afternoon, I emailed all your village accounts. CMAP, who is our regional planning organization, is holding a kind of a workshop for their On to 2050, which is the regional plan up to 2050 at Clarendon Hills next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If you want to respond back to that email and tell me your interest in going, I will get you on the list. I think it's scheduled from 3 o'clock till 4:30 in the afternoon.
Great. And the location and everything is included in
Yes,
there? and
it's in Clarendon's west, their village hall there, and the information would be contained in that email.
Great, great. Also like to thank you again, too, for the economic development update that we received.
Appreciate that.
Very helpful for all of us to see the status of projects.
Yes.
Anyone else have anything else? Village attorney?
Nope.
All right. Seeing as we have no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Bartel, second by Commissioner Van Buren. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.